Hi, welcome to Next Play.
On today's show, the people behind Grand Theft Auto make a Western game because the American frontier had hoes too.
It's true.
The Old West, when men were men. Cowboys were cowboys, and flowers were flowers. Ignore the previous Western game, Red Dead Revolver. Forget it ever existed, like Young Guns 2. It's all about Red Dead Redemption, one of 2010's best games.
But I actually want to talk about something so much more important than Red Dead Online. Sexism in gaming. In joining G4...
This is not where I thought we were going, but I'm here.
Every time G4 is brought up in various channels, even in this YouTube channel, we have the chat in front of us. I can see you. Without a doubt, there will be backlash because I'm not as bangable as the previous hosts. It's dehumanizing and it's weird. Women do not exist to be nice on the eyes for you. Morgan Webb, Olivia Munn did not exist to be nice on the eyes for you. Those reactionary threads thinking that I'm somehow ruining your current X-Play experience because you can't objectify me how you previously did to Morgan, or that I'm somehow less qualified to speak on something, but you can't quite put your finger on why. You're letting your unconscious biases ruin my day and you're gatekeeping the gaming space. So maybe for 2022, we be a bit nicer, a bit more self-reflective, and we enjoy the fact that people are working hard to make free content for you. If you don't like it, don't watch it. Peace.
And the world replied, "We find your terms acceptable." I grew up with the original G4. I was at that perfect age in my teens when it was at its peak. I can still remember vividly hanging out with my buddies back in the day, everyone with their own little setup, their individual computers, consoles, whatever they were playing, and we'd have G4 just running in the background. Yeah, we were drowning in the ladies, boys, you know it. I loved the personalities, Adam Sessler, Kevin Pereira, Olivia Munn, Morgan Webb. Oof. Morgan Webb. If simping was a thing back then, I would have been Morgan Webb's #1 simp. And I mean, the list goes on. Chris Hardwick from Talking Dead fame now. Chris Gore with his movie reviews. I loved that he would review movies when they came out, like on DVD and Blu-ray, and not just talk about the movie itself, but give a rundown of like the special features in that on those physical releases. I'm not joking or being facetious when I say I watch this stuff all the time. And when the network was originally canceled, honestly, by that point, I didn't even care. It was long past its prime. People, including myself, had moved on. You see, G4 TV was a moment in time. It was at the right place at the right time. The internet was still relatively young. Even when we did get sites like YouTube, the early YouTube gaming content, it was rough, to say the least. Lots of dudes just posting raw 240p Call of Duty gameplay footage and screaming into their $5 microphones over it. So the idea back then of having these high-quality studio productions for gaming and tech news and review shows serviced an audience. There weren't, again, many options for really any consistent game coverage back then, and certainly not many of this quality. I do remember, in terms of internet stuff, back in the day, the main site I would go to for gaming news was a site called Game Trailers, and they had similarly not as highly produced content, but, produced content. Screw Attack was another big site I visited a lot back in the day. But G4 was the king of the mountain. They had, again, the big production budget. They were on TV, which actually meant something back then. And they certainly had the right people. Again, the personalities, nerdy dudes who knew their shit, and hot chicks, some of which also knew their shit. But the key, regardless of, how much of a real nerd you were, the key was that everybody was entertaining and at least came off like they were having fun. Now that is a winning formula, but again, still it ran its course. We live in a time now where this type of thing really doesn't make much sense anymore. I mean, even your big mainstream news channels have trouble maintaining their audiences because there are so many options for people to go to for their news these days. Nowadays, a dude can grab a camera, throw up a green screen, and have his own, even daily, gaming news show and do extremely well. Sure, maybe it doesn't have as much of a high-end production value, but that also means it doesn't have those type of expenses. And you know, it's 2022, maybe that guy can double as the eye candy of the show as well. So when I heard G4 was coming back, I immediately thought this thing didn't have much of a chance. It's, once more, just something that isn't necessary. They did have some of the past talent returning, which would draw in people, with nostalgia for it. Some pretty big newer names, Gerard the Finishist, Xavier Woods from WWE, who has his own gaming channel. I don't know, what all these people, their job roles exactly in that were, but I know they were tied to this G4 relaunch in some way. And I think he brought in, some of his WWE buddies to, help get some eyeballs on this. You had even Scott the Woz putting episodes of his show on there. Scott, as all of you know, by far my favorite Spider-Man. Huge fan over here. So they did definitely come back with some star power, some money behind it. So maybe with all these factors, even though I still didn't think it would be a good long-term play, this isn't something I'd invest my money into, maybe it could last a good while. Scratch a bit of that nostalgia itch. I assume with a lot of these personalities that were jumping on board, that was a big part of the draw. I'm sure many of them, like me, grew up watching G4, so it's oh, I get to be a part of this in some way. So yeah, maybe it could last a good while, be something that people could look back on fondly one day, like the original channel. But the whole thing was pretty much torpedoed by what is referred to as the Frosk sexism in gaming rant. That, if you're not familiar, I played some bits from at the opening of this video. Regardless of how you even feel about this tirade, this individual going off on this screeching rampage at the fans during the early moments of the relaunch. That's why this was such a big deal. It's this was right as they were starting to get things going. So it's you had the most eyeballs, most attention, and this is what people heard about. And now, especially that we know the network is shutting down, even if you're watching this, you're all for it, you're Frosk's biggest fan, you can't disagree. Again, now that we know the whole thing is shutting down, that this is what the relaunch will always be known for. It's sealed now. That's it. When people think about the G4 reboot, this is what they're going to think about. Like I also said, they brought back past personalities, lots of big new names. Doesn't matter. No one's going to remember any of their contributions. This one moment is what people are going to think about. So, if you're going to talk about the short-lived new G4, this is really the only thing you got to talk about. I guess what set this off, to my knowledge, is that there were people in the comments talking about, as Frosk herself put it, that she's not as, quote, bangable as the previous female hosts, which it just seems crazy to me in a group of, again, many veterans. Her herself, I think, from what I heard, she came from like the esports MLG scene, something like that. For everyone involved, this isn't a new thing. People can be mean in the comments, and it's not just a gamer thing. Go to literally any fan community and you'll find people complaining about how toxic people are. It's not a social media thing, even an internet thing, it's a people thing. So many of these people who like work online that I see complaining about this stuff, like, oh, how toxic people are, again, the misogynist gamers, oh! Personally, myself, I don't really see what the fuss is. I mean, I see it, but it's like, you know, if you think this is like, oh, the internet's so bad, why don't you go work a retail job? Because then you won't have to be on the internet. You can deal with people face to face, not online. Yeah, go do that and tell me how much fun you have. Tell me how much sunshine and rainbows that is to do on a daily basis. Serious question. How many of you would, in a heartbeat, trade your job for a job that consists of sitting on a couch in a chair in front of a camera, in front of a microphone, bullshitting about video games all day? And yeah, every now and then people on the internet are going to make fun of you. The stuff from these people blows me away. And it's not like you can't complain about it. That's not what I'm saying at all, to be clear. But to go off like this in this situation where it's part of this big show production, like I said, we're just kicking off this new network and this is how you're going to start things. Just once more, the unprofessionalism, especially when, I've learned more about this, or they've come out with more about this situation that I'll get into. And when you consider these people are veterans, once more, you're not used to this stuff by now? Is this the first time this has happened to you? I mean, you should be if this is the first time this has happened to you, you should be pretty thankful. So in terms of this rant that she goes on about all of us evil, misogynist gamers, for one, much of it is outright lies. Saying this crap like the other girls, the previous hosts on G4, were not there. The quote, I believe, was, "They weren't there to be nice on the eyes for you." I think that's how she phrased it, which obviously that's exactly what they were there for. 'Cause they were hot. Especially Olivia Munn. How many clips are there of her on Attack of the Show, like deep-throating hot dogs dressed in sexy little outfits? So it's like you're screaming at the audience for perhaps, because again, I don't know exactly what kind of thing she's referring to, but it sounds like perhaps what she could be referring to is, it sounds like maybe people were talking about what these shows used to be like, and in response, you're outright lying again about what they used to be like, just to chastise these people. And she even fessed up a bit about this when the closure was announced, saying that when she was originally hired by this new G4, that they were putting out statements in that about how they wanted to, quote, fix the past. So again, you want to talk about gaslighting, going on this big tirade, this rant, talking about how, G4 has never been about this, not about looking at sexy girls, anything like that. And admitting now, after, again, the thing is totally shutting down, that, not only did we know about that, we were making a point to specifically change it. Which I also always love when you reboot something with the intention of totally changing it. Like, we need to update this thing for modern audiences, right? We always hear stuff like that. Always a winning formula. As soon as you hear like something is being rebooted, remade to, again, update it or fix the issues of the past, you might as well just put a bullet in it right there. If you hate the old thing so much, as people always bring up, why not just make a whole new thing? And that way, you don't have to deal with all these awful old fans that you don't want anything to do with. And of course, the cherry on top, finishing it with those famous last words, "If you don't like it, don't watch it." Well, you guys got exactly what you wished for, because people didn't watch it. Immediately following this rant, the thing was memed to death. Sessler, again, someone I've had a lot of respect for, doing that obnoxious, weird, like, orangutan clap. As I mentioned, this is the thing it's known for now. I wouldn't be surprised if many of you may have never even known they brought it back in the first place, and then it was already dead if it wasn't for this moment. Like clockwork, their new YouTube channel started losing subscribers en masse. As I said, this just torpedoed the whole thing. Just crazy. And it's not like if you feel this way, maybe some of you are on this train, like, I like when she stuck it to the evil, misogynist, cis, white, male gamers. Still, if you were going to do this, if you absolutely had to go on this tirade, for one, I don't think you should be doing it while you're tied to a media company like this at all. But still, at the very least, do it on your own Twitter, on your own YouTube channel, not as part of this big network with dozens of people employed there, which I'll talk about in a minute in terms of, because for those of us who are dancing on the graves of the G4 TV reboot, and that includes me, I am dancing on this grave, make no mistake about it. One of the big things people come at us about is like, well, think about all the people who are losing their jobs. Don't you care about them? I do. I think I do feel bad, especially for people who probably didn't agree with them doing this, or again, even if they did agree with what she said, didn't think it was appropriate to say it then, but they sat on their hands in fear. I still feel bad for those people, But it wasn't my fault. I wasn't the one screeching at people not to watch it, and it's those people, not just Frosk, because I also don't just blame Frosk at all. The people that not only let this go, but then after seeing the response especially, cheered it on, like, oh, we stand 100% by this, don't like it, don't watch it. Where were they in that moment, worrying about all these people that were under the employment of this company? Especially the people who were in positions of power, cheered this shit on, and then when the ship was sinking was able to jump to something else and was like, oh, see you guys. I mean, if you want to be mad at anybody for not giving a shit about these people losing their jobs, there you go. And that's what happened. They never gained too much traction. It was admitted in their press release, a statement put out by the CEO when they announced that they're shutting down, saying, yeah, it didn't work out. We didn't pull in as much of an audience as we thought we would. Yeah, no shit. Like I said, I think this thing was destined to fail, but I also think if it was run by someone with even an ounce of intelligence, it certainly could have lasted more than a year. And what makes this even more hilarious is as time went on after the rant, they tried to bring some of the old vibes back. Feelings of the old programming, some more scandalous nature. I've seen some clips of the new G4 where it certainly seemed like you guys were trying to appeal to that awful male gaze, which at that point, I mean, this is just so sad. It's like you hear the rant, they all cheer for it, and then you see these clips from weeks, months, or whatever after it, and it's like, it just reeks of desperation. Obviously, none of that was going to work. It was over. And yeah, in terms of people losing their jobs, yes, I feel bad for some of them, but some of them should have lost their jobs. And if they did earlier, maybe this could have somewhat been salvaged. I mean, they let this Frost chick go on taunting people about this online. One thing I thought was interesting too, again, for the people who are like, oh, all this sympathy and stuff like that, or you should care about people losing your jobs. When there was an initial round of layoffs not long ago, before this shutdown, but it's like their early day, they're like probably trying to consolidate as much as they can. Frosk wasn't included, at least at first. And she put out a tweet basically being like, I lived, bitch. I mean, talk about zero awareness. People are getting fired because of your bullshit. And you're the one basically dancing on their graves, be like, oh, at least the nerds didn't get my scalp. Spoiler alert, they would. And while I blame that moment for this ending so soon, once more, I don't put all of the blame on her, not even close, because again, she should have been dealt with. Either fired or told. And again, for you people who are like, yeah, we like to go after the evil male gamers. Still, she could have put out a statement apologizing to the general audience, not like you gotta grovel for the big bad gamers TM forgiveness, but just be like, guys, I got carried away. Most of you certainly didn't deserve to be just attacked like that at random. But no, you stuck to it by the, don't like it, don't watch it. Even if you wanted to comment, and this is, again, these people are supposed to all be, at least in some way, veterans. If you absolutely had to address this stuff, you just wanted to say something so bad, you could have been way more tactful. You could say something like, yeah, I know I don't look like Olivia Munn, but I'm not here to be Olivia Munn, okay? I'm here to play video games, and I could beat her ass in any video game, and I could beat your asses too. Quick and simple, you're putting out this message like, hey, you know what? I'm not here to be Olivia Munn. I'm serious about video games. And that's it. Certainly wouldn't have turned people off like this. And again, I get this position of, you don't know what it's like to be a girl on the internet and all that, but I've seen girls on the internet and I've seen them handle this type of stuff much better than this. Again, in a group of professionals, they should have been able to figure that out. Because this also, now that the doors are closed, in her final message that Frosk put out about G4, she claims that showrunners and that people organizing this stuff signed off on this segment. It wasn't just some random outburst, which again pulls, for me, more of that blame off of her and puts it on these people. Because again, if you knew she was going to go out there and do this, anyone, again, with half a brain should have been like, no, we are not, at least we are not doing it like this, but still, once more, in this final statement, because she said in this little thread that, like, this is the last time she's going to talk about G4, no accountability for herself. Again, when she's still talking about the rant because, again, even all this time later after the closure, even if people don't want to admit it, she's acknowledging here, we all know this is what killed this thing. And so she's still talking about it, and she's like, oh, well, other people said it was okay. And I'm like, she's the victim, and I didn't get as much support as I thought I was going to get. Where, again, if you're concerned about feeling bad for these people that lost their jobs, where's the remorse from the people who caused it? Where is them taking responsibility? Not just her, these showrunners. That CEO in his statement should have been the one apologizing to these people. People who probably, uprooted themselves, maybe came from different parts of the country and relocated to be a part of this big G4 relaunch, and it only lasted a couple months? Where was the CEO statement should have been like, yeah, I'm sorry I let adults with the minds of children run this shit into the ground and upend your livelihoods. That's what that message should have said. The people who should be taking responsibility for this, who should be held accountable, are all the ones dodging it. And some of you people out here want to come at, again, the people who made fun of this thing from start to finish like it's our fault. No, the one thing we did was we listened to them. They're the ones that said, don't like it, don't watch it, and we obliged. That's it. Now, I wish I could say, hopefully some of these people have learned their lessons, but almost certainly not the ones who should have. I'm sure some of these people, like Gerard, the completionist, especially him being a part now of that infamous moment, even if he doesn't say it, I know deep down he's at least probably not in a rush to jump in to a similar ensemble. I'll say that at least. But the people who are responsible probably have learned nothing. But that's okay, because once more, G4 should have never been revived in the first place. You should have left well enough alone, left the memories alone, let us remember it for the fun gaming background noise it was that eventually turned into never-ending reruns of Cops. The dating one, what was that? Cheaters on there at late night. Cops was what everybody memes about, but you OGs, you remember Cheaters running on there late at night. But yeah, hopefully that at least is the main takeaway here. It's getting pretty close to Halloween, and as the late, great Herman Munster once said,
well, sometimes that is better.
Anyway, with that, this video's a wrap. Let me know your thoughts on G4's resurrection and quick return to the grave in the comments. Are you surprised this happened, especially after the infamous Frosk rant? Do you think this whole gaming news network concept could still work? As always, I'm the Shy Guy, Johnny Zakari, and thanks for watching.